The day many knew was coming is finally here. At around 9 a.m. Eastern Time on March 5th, 2026, Six Flags posted on a blog post that they were selling the parks Ronde, Michigan's Adventure, Schlitterbahn Galveston, Six Flags Great Escape, Six Flags St. Louis, Valleyfair, and Worlds of Fun to EPR Properties, who already owns two parks in the Six Flags chain, Frontier City and Six Flags Darien Lake. Michigan's Adventure, Schlitterbahn Galveston, Great Escape, St. Louis, Valleyfair, and Worlds of Fun are going to be operated by Enchanted Parks, an entirely new chain effective immediately. This year will mainly be spent on learning the parks before they start actually fully operating them, while Ronde is getting sent to the purgatory known as Premier Parks. In this video, I will share some history on the sale, my thoughts, and where each park sold off and the entirety of the Six Flags chain could go from here. In January of 2026, reports came out of trademark filings on Enchanted Parks. They were Enchanted Parks Galveston, Enchanted Parks St. Louis, Enchanted Parks Michigan's Adventure, Enchanted Parks Oceans of Fun, and Enchanted Parks Great Escape Lodge. This got many people thinking whether these parks would be sold off or it was an entire rebranding of the Six Flags chain. Until March 4th, when an Instagram account called Enchanted Parks USA was leaked and was following all the parks in the trademarking. However, it was also following Valleyfair. This got people theorizing again that a sale was soon. However, some people wrote it off as a prank when later in the day it was following accounts like Roblox and Disney and none of the parks in the sale. However, Six Flags announced the next day that they were selling off those 7 parks to EPR and Ronde, with all parks besides Ronde being operated by a new chain, Enchanted Parks USA, which was formerly Innovative Attraction Management, which owns Diggerland in New Jersey and Enchanted Forest Water Safari in New York. Ronde will, however, be operated by Premier Parks, which also operates Magic Springs, the soon-to-be-closed Wild Waves, Pacific Park on the Santa Monica Pier, where the famous West Coaster is, and Elitch Gardens. So it's time for my thoughts on the sale. I honestly think that this is going to be a huge boost to all the parks being sold to Enchanted Parks. However, I don't think it's going to be that good for Ronde. I can see it open up new opportunities for the parks sold off and allow them to become a star of a new chain, including one that I think will be the new crown jewel of the chain coming later. However, history has not been kind to parks in the U.S. that have left the Six Flags chain. Geauga Lake died 3 years after being sold off, Wild Waves is closing this year, and Elitch Gardens and Kentucky Kingdom, although under Hershey and Kentucky Kingdom is improving, are currently some of the worst parks in America. So I can see Ronde heading down that path. However, I see most of the parks being sold off heading down the path where it's going to be a huge boost to them. Now let's get into what each park can do from here. I'll start out west with the water park Schlitterbahn Galveston and head east, ending with Ronde. I am not familiar with any of the parks outside of the Missouri area, but I will try the best I can. I will also not go into detail for the specific water parks that are attached to each park, like Oceans of Fun or the new water park heading to Valleyfair soon. Schlitterbahn Galveston is one of 2 water parks serving the Houston metro area, along with Hurricane Harbor Splashtown. Schlitterbahn Galveston, located in Galveston, Texas, which is on the Texas coastline, is about an hour outside of downtown Houston, with 26 acres of land to use for the entire park. The first major thing that will happen to the park is the loss of the Schlitterbahn name, as that name is owned by Cedar Fair, which is now Six Flags. And the park will most likely become Enchanted Parks Galveston or something around there. This will likely be the top water park in the chain for investment, as it has a good location only an hour outside of one of the biggest metropolitan areas of the country. I can definitely see some investment here later on if they can figure out some of the land issues they have, as they are almost, if not 100% developed. Next up is what I think might be the second most invested in park in the chain, Worlds of Fun. EPR is based in Kansas City, Missouri, and with this park inside of the Kansas City metropolitan area, I can honestly see this getting a ton of investment. It just got its first coaster in 15 years during its 50th anniversary when they remade their Schwarzkopf Jetstar Zambezi Zinger into a GCI wooden coaster, and that opened in 2023. It got some general improvements last offseason with a refreshed African era, including new paint for the land. Prowlers got Titan Track, a new repaint of their entire coaster Mamba, and a tunnel on Zambezi Zinger's lift hill to help with reliability. This park will lose rights to the Peanuts characters as that is owned by Cedar Fair, which is now Six Flags, meaning that Snoopy will have to be rethemed to a non-IP kids area, possibly back to the original Worlds of Fun characters Sam Panda, Gertrude Gorilla, and Dan Coon. I can also see some of the original theming coming back, especially in the Scandinavian Americana areas. I could also see this park getting some rides later on, including a couple of flats like a Zamperla Endeavor, where Falcon's Flight used to be, and maybe even a launch coaster. Overall, this park is in a growing metropolitan area, a ton of land that has not been used, and an already built up collection of rides that, with the right management and improvements, can help catapult the park into higher middle tier status, similar to a park like California's Great America. The next park is Valleyfair. Located in Shakopee, Minnesota, which is in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area, it is one of the two original Cedar Fair parks. This park hasn't got a new coaster since Renegade, their GCI wooden coaster in 2009, and has many aging coasters including 3 Arrows and an Intamin Impulse. This could be one of the top parks in the chain with its location in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area, like I mentioned earlier, and room for expansion. This park was not listed on the trademark list, but it was sold anyways. I can see this park getting some decent investment despite its shortened operating season due to its northern location. A looping coaster and a family coaster like Rookie Racer, Snoopy's Racing Railway might be in the future for this park. I can see this park being possibly number 2 or number 3 in the chain, receiving some solid investments over multiple seasons. Next up is the park I am most familiar with, which is my home park of Six Flags St. Louis. One of the 3 original Six Flags parks that were built by the Six Flags chain, this will be the first time in the park's history that it will not be operated by Six Flags. This park has a solid ride lineup, a really good layout, good location in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and a constant influx of people visiting and revisiting the park. Most of this information in this section I will speak on is from an interview with James Harhey, which is the new CEO of the Enchanted Parks chain, by St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Harhey originally said that Six Flags St. Louis, which will now be called Mid-America by Enchanted Parks, as an homage to the park's original name of Six Flags Over Mid-America, was not originally part of the sale, but Harhey pushed it as he saw it becoming the crown jewel of the new chain. He also said it was the most valuable of the 7 parks sold, however, he could not disclose the value of it. Harhey also said that they will use this year to learn about the park, figure out which rides are popular, what they need to improve on, and the overall operation of the park. The IPs might not be an issue here, as he said that he is working with Warner Brothers in order to gain licensing to the IPs of at least DC, and maybe even Looney Tunes. Harhey has also said that we should expect new attractions at Six Flags St. Louis on a really constant basis. However, if they do not get access to those IPs, it would cause a lot of work for the chain, as 16 of Six Flags St. Louis's 35 attractions have either the DC or Looney Tunes IP attached to them. This would involve major refurbishments to rides such as Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast, Joker Carnival of Chaos, and most drastically, their dark ride Justice League Battle for Metropolis in order to get rid of the IPs. This will bring us to our first change, which is the retheme and refurbishment of Justice League Battle for Metropolis. Harhey has already stated that a rethemed Justice League is on the table, and my bet is that it will close after this year for the entirety of the 2027 season, and will reopen in the 2028 season as a rethemed Sally Shooting Dark Ride. I can also see, if the park wants to go this route, bringing back a retheming of the original lands of USA, France, Missouri, Britannia, Spain, and Illinois. This might already be planned, as they are already honoring the park's history with the renaming of the park to Mid-America by Enchanted Parks. The park will have to make significant improvements in guest experience, as the park has gone downhill, based on my experience, significantly since the merger, with food, operations, and overall experience of the park going down. So better food, new pavement, and theming will also likely be in the future for Six Flags St. Louis. For new rides, a possible drop tower or another flat ride on the Excalibur plot, which has been standing since Excalibur has been removed in 2022, and possibly a Vekoma launch or Ghost Law Eurofighter on the Boomerang or Ninja plot, as those are aging and going to be removed soon probably, could be in the future. This is the possibility to be one of the best things to ever happen to Six Flags St. Louis, and as a home parker of Six Flags St. Louis, I could not be any more thrilled. I am excited to see what Harhey and Enchanted Parks do with their new crown jewel, Six Flags St. Louis. The next park is Michigan's Adventure. Located just outside of Muskegon, Michigan, this park is one of the lesser ones they acquired. They haven't received any major investments since the start of the century, outside of their rethemed kids area in 2021. This park is going to have to retheme Camp Snoopy at their new kids area, as they will no longer have the IP. This park will likely get a flat ride and some water park expansions in the future, but not more than what they would have received under Six Flags. The final park to be operated by Enchanted Parks is Great Escape. Located nearby the Albany metro area, this park looks like it would not be that profitable or interesting. However, the park also has a lodge on the property that brings in a lot of money. The park saw some investment before getting sold off, with the Funtime Booster Adirondack Outlaw and the Gravity Group wooden coaster Bobcat being added to the park in the last 5 years. I think this park will probably be number 4 importance in the chain behind the 2 Missouri parks and Valleyfair. Great Escape will likely get some investments and general improvements to the park overall, maybe an expansion to the lodge, and possibly a flat ride down the road. The park I have not mentioned yet is Ronde. That is because Ronde will not be operated by Enchanted Parks, but instead by Premier Parks. With this, there is no nice way to put it. Ronde is screwed. It is no secret out there that Premier Parks is not a good chain. Most of the parks do not get a lot of investment, if any at all, and they do not have a lot of money. Elitch Gardens, which is before Ronde considered their crown jewel, is considered one of the worst parks in America. They're closing Wild Waves this year. They can't even tear down Arkansas Twister because they're in such bad financial trouble. And because of that, Ronde is lucky to stay how it was under Six Flags, or maybe get even worse because of Premier Parks. And because of this, the future does not look bright at all for Ronde. The sale is likely to help Six Flags get out of its debt. They reportedly got $331 million for selling off these 7 parks, which is only $31 million more than what they got for selling off California's Great America. It will likely help as these parks were less profitable in the chain. However, I do not think that this is the end of them selling off parks. 20 Park is not that viable with a park, especially with Six Flags Great Adventure a couple hours down the road. Frontier City and Darien Lake are not owned by them, and I could see them getting rid of them as they've also got rid of parks that they lease, like Ronde and Galveston. I can also see them getting rid of some of the water parks too, as it will help them join up their portfolio. I feel like even though this chain spent a lot of money on getting parks last year, Hershen could land some of these parks. They would fit their growing catalog and help bolster their lineup and be one of the topper parks in the chain. If Six Flags doesn't see a reason to keep SFDK, or if they're still in desperate need of money, I can see SeaWorld sweep in and pick up that park too. This will open up Six Flags to spend more money at the parks that'll give them the most return. So those are my thoughts on the sale. I'm optimistic that all parks affected will get better under the Enchanted Parks chain and maybe even succeed some of the newer bottom-tier Six Flags parks. I'm hopeful that Ronde at least stays how it is, if not gets better, but I'm holding my breath on that part. The future looks bright for all of these parks under the Enchanted Parks name, and I am excited to see in the next coming years what these parks become. My name is NW Coasters. Thank you for watching.